then came the big break. And Meyer Weisgall was heading a committee that was charged with the responsibility of building a Palestine pavilion at the World's Fair.
In 39.
That was the 39, but it started in 38 because the preparations.
Yeah.
And I don't think he interviewed anybody else, but again there too, he thought, I've got to have something if I'm the national president of Hadassah.
Well.
And also my contacts would just enhance that job.
Well, that's true.
So I got that job. And I worked at that.
And that was to be his assistant,
That
right?
was to be, well, no, I was his secretary.
Secretary.
But
was
there was no distinction between I was at his side for everything, you know. And so I used to have a full-time job there, and on my lunch hour, I used to run like mad to the Hadassah office, which was in a Columbus Circle, to look at the mail and to dictate something and to, you know, that kind of thing. Or if there was a luncheon someplace that I had to go give a greeting, I'd go on my lunch hour and come back in time.
Oh, no.
But this was an overwhelming opportunity.
And you knew it.
Number one, there was this man, Weisgall, who had the broadest vision of any Jew that lived in America at that time. He saw ahead and saw only things in their entirety, and he saw them as being the most artistic and the, not so much the greatest, but the most meaningful. And he operated with that kind of a vision. Unfortunately, Jews, organized Jews especially, around the country, didn't have that kind of vision. Their vision was very narrow, and they could think only in terms of small budgets and work within that budget, you know. And originally, Weisgall asked for $500,000 from the whole American Jewish community to build a Palestine pavilion, the World's Fair. And of course, he saw very soon that that was a drop in the bucket. What could you do with $500,000 when every other pavilion, every nation in the world, Arab nations, the Russian, the Swedish, every nation had a pavilion. And there wasn't one that could possibly have been built under $3 million. So Weisgall had again to appeal to the federations around the country to say, this is what I need in order to move forward. And then there began that big blast against him. I mean, they said about him that he was a ganef, that he was a thief, that he thinks big, that he can't do anything for small amounts, that he should be discouraged from doing what he wants to do, and that he will make all the Jewish communities everywhere impoverished by what he's asking, and he was very discouraged, but as I focused on what that place should be.
And what it meant to have a Palestine, weren't you pavilion?
There were, you know, that part of it, but anyhow, little by little, tidbits came in, and he got the money together, and he hired an architect from Israel. Wonderful, wonderful guy.
You said felt he had to go over at one point too.
Oh yes, he did that. He did that. Oh sure, many times. And he got the artistic director to come, and all these things had to be ordered, the dioramas and the exhibits and the everything that was going to be in there. And again, with his big vision, he could think only in terms of beautiful, the best. You know.
Right.
So he got this staff together, and they came over. One of the most exciting events during that time it was approaching the day before the opening of the World's Fair. The Palestine Pavilion stood beautiful. There was to be a march of the nations on the day before the official opening of the World's Fair. And each nation that had a pavilion was invited to join in that march through Manhattan and through the streets leading toward Long Island where the fair was. And every nation was invited that had a flag accepting the Palestine Pavilion. And the reason they wouldn't let us march was because they said we're not an official state.
Mm-hmm.
We're not recognized.
Mm-hmm.
And the only people that were invited to march were those that were recognized already with a government and a flag.
It's a
We
tremendous
had our
political
flag,
issue.
but we were not recognized. So there were these great people, Stephen S. Wise and Abiel Silber and Abba and Israel Goldstein and Weisskall had maneuvered some of the big politicians of that time. And they worked at the State Department and they worked on them and they worked on them. No, your State Department will not permit you to march with the other nations because you are not recognized by the State Department as a state. It came that very night before. And we were all staff congregated in the offices. We were then in the Empire State Building, 28th floor. And there we were with a group of, I think they were 10 or 12 young men who were going to march if we got permission. We had our flag there. And we also had a tailor, a seamstress, so that if we would get word the last minute that we could march, that person would immediately, we'd put the uniforms onto these people and they would do whatever needed to be done. We were there through the night. At 2 o'clock, the word from Washington was still no permission. 4 o'clock, no permission. I think it was something like 6:30 in the morning that we got word that we had permission to march with the other nations of the world.
For the first time?
Never anything like it. And we got our men ready. And they went down to the meeting place and they took their place and they marched with the flag. And Jews had never, ever seen a Jewish flag anywhere except in a Jewish meeting. And there they lined up. Jews on all the way to the end of the parade. And when they saw the Jewish flag coming, with Jewish men holding it, the weeping that went on was something that we just will not ever, ever, ever forget. That was the first big victory before the state was born. That the State Department acknowledged that we were that we had a flag and that we were an independent state in the making, en route. And the people that were there must have convinced them that we were close to it and that we should be recognized. Well, then came the official opening of this fair. Yeah.
Yeah.
For our opening, we had Albert Einstein as the guest speaker. And there were more people that came to the opening of the Palestine Pavilion than the whole fair, World's Fair.
Really?
Yeah.
Because he must have just come out in the...
It was, I mean, the Jews turned out and the non-Jews, and I mean, it was just a great, great, great occasion. And hundreds of thousands of people poured through that place, and they saw dioramas, and they saw stories with picture and with sound about Palestine. There was no Israel yet.
Right.
Of what was being done to build the land.
Yeah, the agriculture.
Yes, and they had a picture of what it was like, the sand dunes, and what Jewish National Fund was doing, and it was a great, great taste. I mean, it got rave reviews in all the papers and everything,
and was Weisgall pleased, and did he take?
It was, how could he not be? You know? And we had every day there was another organization that had its day.
Okay.
Every day.
So every day, every week, I don't remember just how it went,
but
another Jewish organization had its day at the Palestine Pavilion, and they could come and they'd explain their program and have a special tours and invite, like Hadassah had its day,
and you were the...
Yeah, I was, that was one of my assignments to work with, as Weisgall's assistant. I worked with these special events, you know, and
but I mean, on Hadassah's day, you were the Hadassah...
No, I was just assembled them and got them.
see.
No, I was just...
you were on the Weisgall staff,
yeah.
Right.
Oh, sure. And so that every Jewish organization, you know, had its day. The social workers, it was called Jewish Social Workers at the Palestine Pavilion. It could have been the Jewish Legion that had its day there, and we sold tickets, I think, for certain dioramas. And I remember I was looking at the picture the other day. Weisgall asked me to go see the governor, Al Smith, at the time, to sell him the first ticket.
What a great idea. Leave it to Weisgall.
But I went, and the picture reminds me of what happened. He was known to drink, and he was drunk. And I'm standing there handing him the ticket, and I'm holding my mouth. And he smelled liquor. But it got into the press.
It got into the press.
The
That's the important thing, the photo opportunity.
It got into the press. Anyhow, the fair itself was tremendous success, tremendous. The outpouring of people, and acknowledged by the World's Fair people themselves, you know, because people were pouring in Jews from everywhere. No, I don't suppose anybody that had Jewish blood flowing through his body would miss even if they weren't identified in any way, but would come for that.
And that was his vision of what it would mean to inspire everybody and motivate everybody.
To tell them about Palestine, but they, you know, to see what it was like at that point of time, to see what the motivation is to build a state. And we had speakers from time to time, you know, we'd plan some special events, and